How you doing? This is Coach Norman Randall of Edna Karr High School, Special Teams Coordinator, D-line coach, man, and you're watching the FanView podcast.
What's up, y'all? This is Jackson Fager, the director of Algiers America, and you're watching the FanView podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the FanView podcast. It's your boy G Sports in the building.
Coach Hurricane Hand back at it again.
And we got two special guests on the FanView podcast this week, man. We got assistant coach at Edna Karr, Norman Randall, Mr. Jackson Fager, the director of the newly premiered Algiers in America that's just premiered on Hulu about a week ago, right?
The Karr Cougars are going for a fifth consecutive state championship.
Nobody in America has ever done it.
But we always believe it can be done.
Our aspirations was to build the best team in America. And people kept saying we couldn't. But man, it's hard to think about that when you see people getting killed.
Last night, former wide receiver Gillette George was shot to death in the Algiers neighborhood of the city.
The relentless pursuit of saving a child. Easy to say that, harder to do it. When we lost him, it changed our message of our program.
People think it's all about football, but it's really about the lessons that you learn.
Winning and losing don't define champion. It's how you fight through adversity.
I don't want to release no balloons for no funerals. I want to release the balloons when they graduate, when they go to college.
They want hope. They aspire to be great. We have to give them greatness. We have to instill that greatness in them because that's what they aspire to be. I love each and every one of y'all to death.
We're on episode 3. I checked it out last night, man. It's buzzing heavily, all on the internet, all around the nation. A lot of people have been calling me about it because they know I'm heavily affiliated with Karr. Man, glad for y'all to come on the podcast and kind of talk about this story. And Jackson, man, you somebody I met about 2 years ago?
I mean, the 2020, man, the first season when we started right out of COVID was still going hot.
Yeah.
And I met you, actually, I saw you in an interview with Bryce Brown, and it was 45 minutes long. I'm like, who the hell is getting a 45-minute interview with Bryce Brown?
Hard to get in touch with him.
Right, and so I called you, and this is when I was still learning about the team. I was like, man, I'm just trying to get to know everyone, What's the deal over there? First of all, how'd you even get an interview with him?
Right.
But you were so important at that point because not only did you tell me I had to get to know this guy right here, but you helped with players on the team, especially John Newman, who ends up being one of the stars of our show.
Yep.
But bro, right from the start, you were like the first guy I met.
Yeah, but just to kind of rewind, what made you interested in the Algiers community first, and then the Edna Karr program second? And did you think it'd have this kind of impact on not only in New Orleans but around the world?
No, man. I mean, look, already just the reaction and being with Norm, and what I found out when I went to dinner with him the other night is his first day back at work at his regular job, he had a standing ovation right after the first 2 episodes from his coworkers. I mean, nothing makes me feel better than that. But look, I grew up in Connecticut, so I'm a transplant. I got here when I was 24, and I was working at Channel 4 for 5 years, covering everything, fires, festivals, you name it, as a local news cameraman. Favorite thing I did on the job was Friday Night Football in New Orleans, and I had never seen anything like it. And it might be normal to you guys, but you still geek out about this stuff, right?
Yeah,
and I quickly became one of those who was geeking out about it. I couldn't get enough of it. I was raising my hand like every Friday I got to be at these games. And the first game I shot was a Karr football game at Berman. And I know there's these other stadiums and they're cool and they're newer, but there's something so special about Berman, man, right?
Definitely.
It's like, I kind of wish that there's a rumor that maybe they're going to move over to the new school eventually. I just wish they would always play at Berman and just fix it up,
It's tough to win in Berman.
Something about the jungle.
Yeah,
It's
there's
tough to win
there's spirit and soul there, right? So, I was blown away by it. We did a lot of stories at WWL on kids who were going through, the same stuff we try to talk about in our series, right? So it always stuck with me. And I left here when I was 30 years old. I went and worked for Vice Media, traveled all over the world. I lived in Africa. I covered a ton of conflict. And, I hit the point where I was ready to move back here. I wanted to invest, and really get to know a community and tell a story that wasn't just me being in a place for 2 weeks, but properly dive into a place and not scratch the surface, and also not just tell the story, but then become a part of these people's lives. Like, I'm doing this story now, but like, I consider Norm a friend for the rest of my life, right? Like, that is just as much what I hoped would come out of this, aside from just doing the story. So that's how it came to be. And then a really important subject to me is gun violence in our country. I think it's the most underreported problem in this country. It's going on everywhere in this country. Every inner city neighborhood's going through it. And, I told my local buddies who were in WWL at the time, when I moved back here 3 years ago, I said to them, who are some coaches that are doing this kind of work in these inner city neighborhoods, helping these kids? Because I know it's a problem now. It was when I was here before. And Bryce Brown was one of the names that came up. And so I went and met with him. And, when you meet Bryce, it's like just an experience you don't forget. I mean, for you guys, it's different. You've known him so long. But for me, I was just blown away by the guy, and it was a quick, for me, knowing this is the dude I got to get behind here. I mean, they had just won 4 straight state championships too, right? And he's telling me they're making 250 peanut butter and jellies a day for the kids. And, I was at the old school first. Like, they still hadn't officially moved over. So I'm seeing this rundown school. And I just couldn't believe that he was doing this.
Like, how y'all having this much success with these conditions?
Right. And I knew, though, that, look, I saw it as an opportunity to showcase Louisiana football to high school football, because I think too much credit goes to Alabama and Texas and Florida, at least over the years, right? In our culture, most documentaries or series that have been done are on these other states. Right. And meanwhile, probably the best football being played in the country is coming from Louisiana, especially in the NFL. When you talk about, like, ratio of players in the NFL are coming from Louisiana, right? So I thought it was a really cool opportunity to, like, take this to the next level in the documentary style. We had 11 cameras at the games and show this like it hasn't been shown before.
Now, Norman, let me ask you, as somebody who's entrenched West Bank 1.5, who's a Carr alumni, to see the early stage and to now see Algiers, Edna Karr, what y'all built over the years from when you played to coming back and coaching, how does that affect you, seeing the big picture now that everybody gets to see?
First of all, appreciate y'all having me on. The way it affected me, and looking at the big picture now, I think that's a great question, and I never really thought about it like that. When you start, you start because you felt growing up there was some things missing from your childhood, as far as maybe coaches and influences that didn't give you maybe all the answers. Right. And as you go in college, you kind of evaluate, like, man, they could have did this or they could have did that. And that's not a knock on anybody that's ever coached me or any of my coaches that's with us. But we just want to go back and give answers, right? Give testimonies like, look, don't do this. I went to college, did this, don't do that. And you just want to give your failures to kids and say, look, there's a different way to go, and I felt like, I never was a street guy. I was always a good kid, but I felt like I could have did better academically. I felt like I could have maybe put more into it, into my craft a little more, right? But if you don't know, you don't know. And so back when we were growing up, it was always told of, if you want to get out of Algiers, you want to do this, you got to play, right? Football, basketball, baseball, whatever it is, that's your way out, right? And that's just not the truth. And I think now, getting our kids to understand, like, if you watch the series and you understand it's about football, but it's really about taking the lessons from football, using it as a tool. And what I mean by that is, now we try to get our kids to understand what you want to major in. Don't wait till your senior year and your counselor sit down with you, and now you got 6 months to make a choice about what you're going to do in your life. That's just unrealistic. Right. Now we want to get kids in different programs. We want to get kids in different areas to understand what's my outlook, because all of y'all not going to play college football, right? And then when they're told that, right, let's say you're a senior and you're told, hey, your services are no longer needed in football, now you don't know which way to go, because people have been making you play that since you were 5. Right. As opposed to if you went into it with a business mindset and you're going, okay, I can't play that no more, but I already have this. I already have a scholarship in this. So I'm taking tops in that because I'm going to major in this. This is what I'm going to do. Then it's a much easier transition mentally, right? And I think every athlete, a lot of us don't speak on it, but we can speak to the fact that you go through depression. I was there when, G was trying to still figure out his transition from HL to Southeastern, whether he wanted to keep playing football or not, right? Same thing with you, same thing with me. There's a time and place where you eventually go through these mental issues because you are told you cannot no longer play a sport because you're not talented enough or you're not good enough or you're
That's
not big
tough.
enough. And so mentally that's tough, and I don't think we deal with that mental part of it. We just like, oh, he can't play no more. All right, well, he should be doing this. Well, I've been playing this for 18 years, 17 seasons.
Right.
Right? And everybody's been hyping me up. You're this, you're that, you're this. And all of a sudden, you telling me that this college coach or this pro coach telling me I'm not good enough, I'm crushed.
Right.
And then a lot of us don't know how to deal with that. And sometimes it turns to kids going left. Kids drop out of school. They start running with the wrong people. They go back to their neighborhood. Well, in their neighborhood, 9 times out of 10, people are working, what? Check to check.
Right.
And so, we get caught up in the system. And I think that was a great thing about Jackson is coming and shining light on our community. And I think Bryce said it best on that. It's not just for Algiers, it's for the city.
Right.
And if you're talking about from here to JP, wherever you are in New Orleans or the surrounding areas, it shines a light on what these kids go through other than just playing ball. You see Aaron Anderson under the helmet and he's fast, he can do everything. Taji Hill, he's big, he's strong, he can do everything. But what are they really going through? And on the show, you get to see that. Taji has a brother in jail. He's dealing with that mentally, right? He's dealing with growing up in the East. Jawin's dealing with not having much, right? Aaron Anderson's dealing with losing somebody. Like, I didn't lose anybody growing up. And so I don't know what that feels like. And so just to be here in the outlet and see things come to fruition and these kids actually go live out their dreams, I think it's a great story.
I want to touch on Jackson. You did 2 other TV series, Vice and Hunters. And I know you're proud of those projects, but this project was unique in its own way. What made this project, in your mind, the cream of the crop, as some people would say, versus your other 2 projects that you did with Vice and Hunters?
Well, first I would say I feel like everything I did up to this point was preparation for this story. Wow. It's like I've been doing this for 15 years now, this craft. The 10,000 hour rule that Malcolm Gladwell talks about. I just feel like this story came in front of me, maybe from a higher power, and I have one opportunity here to do this right, and I came with the tools necessary to do it. And what separates this series from everything else I did was that at Vice and on these other series that you mentioned, there was always a host or a narrator. And with this series, there's none of that. Right. This series is told.
I didn't even think about that. There is no narrator.
There's no narrator, man, which actually it makes it a much bigger challenge to do this, especially over 5 hours.
That was
right?
by choice, or you just
this
didn't
was
have
a choice.
The right person?
This was a choice. I wanted this to be as raw and real and authentic as possible, and told through the people of this community. I didn't want this to be an outsider coming in as the voice of this. Right, the voice should be Bryce and Norm and these kids. So. That was challenging, and that's what separates it, and that's what I'm most proud of, though. So when you watch it and you get to hear from these kids, they're the ones telling you what they're going through. They're the ones showing us what you're going through, and I think that's rare. It's a rare thing in this industry.
When you sit back, when you sat back the first time and watched what you created with Algiers America, what goes through your mind?
It's still hitting me, man. I don't want to be that cliche sports person who's like, man, I have no words right now, But I've watched every damn episode so many times. The edit is the hardest, most humbling part of this process of filmmaking, right? Mm-hmm. And so we were editing this for a year and a half. I've probably watched every episode, 200 to 300 times. And so at this point, yeah, exactly. And especially because we knew how special this was, right? And that you only get one opportunity with a program like this, and this is something very precious to them that they've been holding on to. So if they're going to tell their story, they're only going to do it once, right? And so it has to be the best it could possibly be, and that mattered so much to me. So every single frame, every moment was critiqued so carefully. Yes, I've watched it a ton of times, but it's the only thing I've ever done where I'm sitting back now going, damn, like I'm really proud of this, and I gave it everything I had. And no matter what I do the rest of my life, I know that one time in my life, I gave it 100% from beginning to end.
Now, I wore this shirt today for a special reason. You know, I know G when he saw it, like when we came in, you know, he kind of like gave me a little smirk, and it's because I knew Norman growing up from playing against each other, but I hadn't met him as a coach until I started coaching, and it was at a event that G put on, and he was like, "Man, you should meet Norman. You know, these are my boys from college." You know, I said, "Well, I didn't meet them. I know them." And, you know,
Right.
so I went straight up to Nick and Brendan, like we just started like running, and then he was like, "Man," and then like they introduced me to Donnie. This is when Donnie was
At LSU.
at LSU, and he was like, "Man, I forgot you went to Norman's like I forgot you went to Alcorn, right here." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Man, we got a kid over there, George. We call him Tonka." I said, I remember that. He's like, yeah, man, check him out. You know what I'm saying? You know, stop by, you know, just let them know you. So I started doing that. Like I started kind of loving on Tonka from afar because, you know, we in our field, you know, we both coach. So you can't just get to Alcorn
Right.
like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like every time
In
I
the middle
show
of nowhere.
yeah, it is what it is. You know, but every time I show up there, hey, man, look, being from the city, look, this is some spots you want to check out. You know, it's not New Orleans food, but it'll give you something. Just put a little Laura's on it, something like that.
right.
You know, just loving up on him. And, you know, when he passed away, that was like, y'all was the first people I thought of. Like, man, because just to know Tonka, to be around him, it was like a uplifting spirit. Like, yeah, you know, coming from the city, we know what you went through, but like he never let it show. He was always big, and that kind of was like a monumental piece in episode 1 for sure. And it's like a recurring like theme, like when you go into when he's showing them at Norman Park, you know so forth. So when everybody's talking about the Live for Five, you know what I'm saying, and a lot of people like G spoke on it, you know, before, like, hey, the numbers mean something, but now that America get an inside look, like, hey, this is what this means. Both of y'all speak to like Jackson on your perspective, telling the story of Tonka the correct way, you know, and Norman of having his legacy live on the correct way.
I'll start off with Tonka. Tonka was so special. I don't think people understand, from my perspective at least, because Tonka, I watched Tonka since he was in park ball. My brother played at Norman, right? He would play at Fox. So, you know, he was a legend in the park. And so when he did decide to come to Carr, him and my brother instantly gelled. So Tonka slept a lot of nights at our house, right? And he also played on my AAU team. So when we have the Louisiana Heat organization, him and my brother, and then Tonka was a good basketball player, but we had a bunch of football players playing basketball.
Right.
Keep them in shape. They love playing ball. We used to go compete. In fact, Devon Francois, that's the AD and head coach at Livingston now, was on that team. And we just love Tonka, man. Tonka he had an infectious spirit. You know, he just lit up a room, like you said. Something about him when you're around him that make you go, you know, I want to hang with that kid, or we'll talk to that kid, and he'll talk to you like he's an adult. You know, he's just so special. And you know, every time he would see my mom, he would always, hey, Miss Kim, give her a kiss. So you know, we loved him. But I think Jackson did a great job of covering him in his transition from Carr to Alcorn, coming back home. You know, he's a legend. He'll always be a legend, not only in Algiers, but in the city. He took us to our first state championship. So, you know.
And put on a show.
Yeah, you know, Munchie was like his, you know, Munchie kind of groomed Tonka. And so when Tonka, people don't realize he was a receiver. So, you know, Munchie's last year, he's catching touchdowns in the cold in the third round from Munch. And then he sacrificed for the team to become quarterback, because that's what he did in the park. And so it was really special for us, and we really enjoyed Tonka. But man, I think Jackson did a great job. Even if you watch episode 3 last night, you know, he pops up again. You know, and I think every episode it relates back to Tonka in some way, shape, or form. Of, you know, like they said in episode 1, they changed our vision. You know, when I first got there, it was about taking Carr and these kids and giving them knowledge and taking them to the mountaintop of playing in the Superdome and winning the state championship. I think Tonka made that a reality. Tonka actually took, you know, everybody's dreams and said, you know what, I'll put it on my back, ride the wave with me. I mean, we averaged 50 points a game going into that state championship in 2010, and we ended up losing to a great team with Terrence McGee and the running back that goes to Mississippi State, Josh Robinson, and the receiver went to Southern. Great team, you know. But yeah, speaking on Tonka, he's special. He'll always hold a place in our heart.
Yeah, well said, Norm. I actually filmed the championship game in 2010 or 11 between Carr and Franklinton because Juan Kincaid and I were doing a story on Terrence McGee.
Wow.
Because Terrence McGee's grandmother had never seen him play a football game until the semifinals.
Wow.
And so we went with his grandmother to that game. And so,
Never knew that.
yeah, and so we're then in the Dome, and that was one of the best high school football games I've ever seen.
For real.
And it comes down to Tonka, as he's handing the ball off and they fumble it there. And that moment of Jaluk and Tonka,
That picture.
that is like, I need that framed on my desk. I think that is one of the most iconic photos in Louisiana high school football history. It's a moment, that everyone knows about. I didn't get to meet him like everyone else did. And, Bryce and these guys, in the years that since Bryce started coaching, he's lost 7 kids, whether they were playing on the team or had already graduated. But there was just something about Tonka. And from the minute I came into this community, he was such a presence. Everyone was talking about Tonka. He's such a pillar in this community. And damn, I wish I could have gotten to meet him. And I've gotten really close with his mom. And Tonka's sister, Tiff, is wonderful. And then Buddha, the coach of that park ball team, which I think is just I'm so happy we got to include that in the story. That was just by chance that I ran into them at McDonough Park when they were practicing one day. Had no idea that was Tonka's brother-in-law. And then when you see these kids and the coach handing out 5 to little park ball kids, right?
And you could
That's
tell
like,
that kid, it meant something to him.
oh my God,
It
man,
meant something
he was
to him to
almost
get
crying.
get
He was
awarded that
almost crying.
5.
Meant a lot to him.
He was almost crying. And they all know Tonka, all of them. And he wore it with such pride that whole year. We watched him. Jawin shows up in the next episode to see Jacquez, who wears 5, right? And it's a beautiful moment between the two of them, of 2 kids who are handed this responsibility that they don't take lightly because of how special this guy was. So, look, it was really important to us in the first episode to get this right, because the first episode, our job was to get you up to speed on how the program got to where it is now. And so many things led to this place where we are now, right? Before those 4 straight state championships, Jaluk and Tonka and all these other pivotal people that played a role, Norm and Bryce and all the other coaches. And so, yeah, Tonka was a huge part of that. And that was clear to us just because everyone we would speak to would bring up Tonka.
You grew up in Connecticut, right? That has to be night and day. So much different than the city of New Orleans, right?
Yeah, that's part of why I'm here, man.
Because of the food?
Everything, man. I mean, look, you say food, music, whatever, it's because of the people.
Right.
And I just something about this place, man. I thought I'd been here 200 years ago or something. As soon as I landed here, it was like, I have to be here, man. This is like, it just felt like home.
But talk about the differences, man, from where you grew up in Connecticut versus what you see here in New Orleans and what you experienced doing Algiers, America, under the Edna Karr community and seeing some of the gun violence like you talked about. You think there's one of the worst underreported crimes in all of America. And what have you taken from where you came from versus what you see today in the city?
I think being a transplant can sometimes be a helpful thing because for all of you who grow up here, things become normal that are around you, the good and the bad, right? Like everyone maybe takes it for granted how special this city is sometimes, even though you love it so fiercely. And that goes as well for the problems that are happening around here. Like kids are dying, and after a while, everyone just starts to treat it like it's a normal thing.
Right.
So for me, coming from Connecticut, that was not happening at all. I grew up in the suburbs, about 45-minute drive into Manhattan, in a really nice town where there was, the only kid that was ever dying was from a drunk driving accident. That was the only type of death we ever dealt with. And by the way, the New York Times just put out a story in December that said for the first time in our country's history, more kids are dying from guns than car accidents.
Wow.
Which, it's just crazy to think about. So it was diseases first, then car accidents, and now guns for the first time in our history. So it's crazy though to me when you're talking to Norm, and he grew up here in Algiers, and he said kids weren't getting killed by guns when he was growing up. And so this is an epidemic. This has happened in the last 10 years. So that was a huge thing for me to come into this and realize the extent of it. And a lot of people in Algiers will tell you it's only getting worse right now. And it really makes me sad because Algiers is such a special place.
Yeah.
This is a community full of hardworking people who care so much about Algiers and the people in it, about its past, about its present and future, and all these people devoted to these kids, and teaching them really important life lessons about being good people. You know, Aaron Anderson reads a note to us from Bryce in a later episode. It's a beautiful scene, and it's Aaron thanking him, and he says, thank first of all that Bryce taught him how to love, and for the value of $1, and nothing is given to you; you have to earn it, and just that kind of stuff that all of these guys are passing on to these kids. It's heartbreaking that this is happening among all this beauty in this community at the same time. So I think being from Connecticut helped because, for me, it's just like a eye opener and like, damn, this is not normal. And I gotta get this out there was my mentality.
Norman, you touched on the last episode about the crime didn't really start and get as bad as it is in Algiers today to after Katrina. Because you talked about how, you had people moving from the east because it didn't flood over there. So a lot of people just came to Algiers, and you said that it's not really a lot of gangs in New Orleans. It's about where you from. Like touch on that and kind of go in and elaborate on what you meant by that.
Can I add just a little bit more on it? Because I was going to ask like a similar question because there's a scene in this last episode with Taji's at the table. I think they had Buffalo Wild Wings, and the guy to his left, he said something so powerful. He was like, "Man, this stuff is inherited." He said, "Cause man, your daddy killed my daddy. I can't get to your daddy right now. But by the time I get old, I'm gonna get your daddy."
Yeah.
And it's a revolving
cycle.
And when we was growing up, and I know Norman, you could attest to it, Marrero and Al just didn't get along. Like if you was from the back of Ames, which is I'm from, you could be found in the old Fisher Project, which is no longer there. You could be found on Tullis. You could be found on Holiday. Now, it wasn't going to result in killing unless the older crowd come in, but it was going to be a big fight. But the thing was, you was going to fight, we were going to walk away, we were going to see each other as some type of dance, we was going to play against each other. We left it on the field, court, whatever, dapped it off, but we knew where not to be found for trouble. It seems like now, like you alluded to, after Katrina, all this went out the way. It's like kids afraid to just take an L. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They so yeah, I just wanted to add that on top of the question that G asked.
Yeah, I think it's both of you guys touched on it beautifully. It is what it is. Exactly what you two said. It's territorial, right? And I give you an example. You're coaching in St. Helena. You're in Houma. If a Houma kid moved to New Orleans, I'm not saying that automatically is that something's going to happen to them, right? But let's understand that at some point, wherever they're at or wherever they go, they're going to be asked a question, where are you from?
Right.
When the word Houma come out your mouth and you standing on South Claiborne Uptown, right, it turns into maybe you get clowned or maybe, you're dealing with the wrong person and you are outside your territory.
Your target.
And I think in New Orleans, it's really, really, really based on where you're from. And as dumb as it sounds, most of us don't own the properties that we grew up in. So, us being territorial is just, some bad information that has been passed down, over generations and generations. And I think it's the same way people now feel played. Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, back when we were growing up, if you felt played, you would fight. And when it was over, right? And some people you fought, you end up being friends with. Mm-hmm. Now it's resulting in death. And we used to have unwritten rules when I was coming up, right? You didn't shoot around children, right. Women, grandparents. Now it's anybody, the term anybody can get it. And I think it's really sad and it's scary. And I've grew up in my whole life. I'm 37 going on 38. And I also do believe, like, there's certain places I won't even take my children. If it's a certain time of night, we won't even do it anymore. And it's sad that you have to do that. But Hurricane Katrina displaced people. Mm-hmm. And they used to hear about it. Kids going to Houston, they're getting in fights at these schools. It's not just where we at, it's everywhere. You know, the Houston people didn't really take a kindness to our kids coming to their school. Hence, my little brother was, I want to say, 12 at the time. He might have got in 3 fights at Penn Oak Middle School in Houston, right? This is a good school, great campus, but he was being messed with because he was from New Orleans, right? Same thing with kids going to Alabama and Atlanta and wherever you were displaced to. So it's the same thing in our city. It's just heightened because we don't have gangs. There's no such thing as blood or Crips here.
Right.
You know, maybe it is now because I'm a little bit out of it, but, you know, it's really territorial. Yeah. And you took a lot of pride in saying where you were from. Right. Where you from, Bernie? I'm from the East. I'm from Algiers. Oh, well, the Algiers better than the East. You know, we joke around and play around. But, you know, it's turned violent and it's turned sad. And, you know, our young people does not have the chance to just be children and come up and like Jackson said, in a beautiful city with great culture and food and love. And I do think high school football is like one of the best things in our state from top to bottom. And I'm glad he put a camera on it. But with that comes other things in life. And it's crazy that he shot this for 3 years. And in these 5 episodes, you can really grasp with each one of those kids what they're going through. Whether it's Tory losing his mother and still trying to figure out life, right? Aaron Anderson dealing with death at his doorstep and still trying to go towards his goals, knowing he has a lot of mental depression and things going around him. He's frightened at the time, right? Taji deals with a lot, and they all deal with different things.
Right.
And so it's like not the same storyline for every kid. You know, AJ is not dealing with death as much. He's dealing with more of like trying to figure out playing quarterback at a school with so much pressure. Then he gets hurt, right? Loses his sophomore year. So, you know, I just think it's a great story. But yeah, our city is territorial, and hopefully one day we can, you know, change some systemic things to get us out of this thinking. You know, get enough people and enough programs going, enough light shined on these things so where we can outnumber the bad. The good can outnumber the bad. Right now, the bad is outnumbering the good. And it's starting from 11 years old. Right. And if we don't grasp a hold of this quickly, you know, like Jackson said, it's already out of hand. You know, I'm really frightened of where it's going. As much work as we feel like we've done at Carr, as much work as Jerry Phillips has done at Easton, Nick at St. Aug, and I go on and on about, you know, Kennedy, and they're doing a great job over there right now. We're all trying to get them away from that, and I feel like now we're starting to lose the grip on the rope. They're pulling the rope a little harder than we're pulling the rope, and we got to pull our kids back in, and it can't just be football. Right. You know, because every kid's not playing football. Right. And so I was trying to figure these things out and opening up this conversation. I think Dr. Ashanta Wai she always does a great job of opening the conversation of how do we do that. Has started, but now we have to put in action. And Bryce always tell the kids, you know, we pray and then we get off our knees and hustle. You know, prayer without work means nothing. So, you know, we got to work, and I think this right here is part of it.
Well, I just got to commend y'all. You know, I've been doing as a man. I feel like I just I haven't been given men that's doing positive things in our community, and for the kids, enough flowers. You know, I've been showering G. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm about to shower Norman, Jared, Mike. You know, Brennan, Nick, both Nicks.
You got to look at it like this too, and we appreciate it, but you're doing work in St. Helena. You were previously doing work in a meet, and I'll be honest with you, if Jackson was following you with a camera, I guarantee you we would have saw some things, situations you had to deal with kids, you know what I'm saying, and in your area. So just because it's shot in New Orleans, I think, you know, G used to come to all our games. This is before he ever thought about doing a podcast. This was when he was working, you know, trying to figure his life out. But he would just come to our games and support our kids. Like, he didn't have to do that. He lived 45 minutes to an hour away. And I think that turned, you know, he always had a passion for sports. You know, since the day I met him, first day I met him, we were arguing in Southeastern Cafeteria, H.L. Bourgeois versus Carr. Right. You know, but I think that turned into, you know, it went from going like, how do I figure my life out to these kids? And we can put a camera on G, because I know everything, and I can show you over 50, 60, 70 kids that he's changed just in the Tri-Parish area of who wouldn't have got to these certain schools if he didn't kind of like help navigate them, never ask them for anything, driving them to camps, putting them on phone with coaches. You know, the boy phone don't stop ringing. But that's, you know, he's not getting paid for that. Right. That's just doing God's work. And so I think all 4 of us up here are trying to do that. But there's a plethora of people we can name in the city and in the surrounding areas that's changing lives every day.
But you help me because I remember, and it's still hard to talk about. One of our kids, it wasn't a gun violence when I was at a meet. He passed away in my hands trying to do CPR. Had a hole in his heart, didn't know it. First person to reach out was you. Second person to reach out was G. It's because there's not much you can say to a person that you know is doing it for the right reason.
Right.
Like I'm not I wasn't getting paid. You know what I'm saying? I've been coached for 15 years. Like last year was the first year I got paid for it. You know what I'm saying? So it never was the money. And then to know what y'all go through, and to know for y'all to be like, you know what, hey, there's a guy over there who's going through what we going through, but he's hurting. Let's help up. That's what I'm talking about. I know, yeah, it's like we have a relationship, but I know y'all do it. I just seen y'all. Kid passed away, North Louisiana. We never played the room. Y'all, your staff is like one of the first ones. Hey, look, it's tough. Ride it out. You know what I'm saying? We get through it, but build up the kids. Help them overcome. And I think that's big kudos and showed how much that y'all have grown as men to be like, it's not just about our kids, it's about all the kids.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the biggest thing I think that kind of gets lost in the winning the championships and all that stuff that they don't want to talk about.
That's a good perspective, and I do want to touch on how y'all relationship has grown over the last 2 years, right? Jackson, like you talked about when we first met, you was trying to get inside and get to know Bryce and get to know Norm and just get to know this program and kind of dive deep into what they had going on. Of course, let's just be honest. A white man trying to come into a predominantly black school with predominantly black coaches, you kind of like, hold up. I don't know if we want to do this. Talk about what made you get comfortable with Jackson and what in his vision. And Jackson talked about how you was able to bridge that gap and get them comfortable and knowing that you didn't have a hidden agenda, that you really wanted to tell their story and, show the world what they had going on over here in Algiers, America.
Norm, you want me to go first?
It's up to you. You know what I'm going to say already. We just had this conversation.
Look, man, I've been doing this a long time. The first day I walked into that meeting, I knew. I'm like, shit, man, I'm a white boy walking in this room.
Right.
I got Bryce and the old principal and T. Howard just staring at me. They're like, what the hell do you want?
Right.
And I was not ignorant to that. I accepted that, and I knew that this wasn't going to be easy. I knew deep down that I really, really wanted to do this, but it's a dance because you have to respect all of these things that play here. So it took a minute, and I'll be honest, we joke about it. Like, I think the kids all was treating me like the FBI for the first 6 months, I mean, I'm just filming these games.
Right.
I am not hanging out with them, though. Right. And they're kind of like giving me the side eye, Everyone is,
Right, right. Man, who is,
yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
They're telling, I'm like, what's your name? They're giving me fake names and stuff.
Yeah, right. Very protective.
And so after the first season finished at Karen Crow, where we were together, then I started to go over and meet with the parents, and without cameras, to get to know them and try and help them understand what I was trying to do. And that was huge. Just because they understood, all right, this guy's not that bad, maybe.
Right.
But there's in New Orleans, people are protective here in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. They don't like outsiders coming in and telling you what this is, right? All of it, and everyone's skeptical that something might be negative and portrayed in the wrong way. Mm-hmm. I respected that too, and I learned that from my years previously of being here. The last thing I wanted to do was put out a negative story and have the people in this city and community, be upset with me. Especially because I'm going to be living here the rest of my life. Right. And I think that helped people as well, that I wasn't coming in to do a story and leaving. Yeah. So I put a trailer together from like my first 6 months of filming, and I showed that around. I showed it to the parents, I showed it to the coaches, to Bryce, Dr. Shanta Wyatt, who Norm mentioned, and they started getting behind it. And they then helped the people in the community who were still skeptical understand that, this could be a really good thing for us.
The vision got clearer.
It did. And the trust grew. with every day and every meeting I had. And I'm so thankful it did. But, it took a long time. I would say it was a year before we really got to a point. It took a year, man. And then once it clicked and once they were with me and we were together on this, working together, because that's what it takes, right? That's when it really got special. And that's, I think, what you see in the show is a lot of intimacy and a lot of trust that was built over time.
So I'm gonna give you our side of it, right? That's from Jackson's side of it. So I'm gonna give you the flip side of it, right? And so Jackson comes in a time of the pandemic. Jackson comes in a time of racial inequality being heightened, and
I forgot about
on the
that
platform.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
So
Forgot about that.
when he
So what was
first
going on?
comes, Bryce tells us what's going on, right? And we have a meeting, and we're like, okay, we had just had some stuff. Media always been following us, from you guys to WWL, Ken Trahan, Ed Daniels, and I can go on and on. So when he comes around filming, right? And immediately it's 2 cameras, 3 cameras, and immediately you go, keep the camera away from me, right? Go shoot whatever y'all gonna shoot, and then go, right? And so nobody wanted to give him a chance. I know I didn't, and I'll be honest with you, I still don't know who gave him my number to this day.
I think it might have been me.
It was you, bro.
Might have been me.
It was.
So what happened was he was filming, and one thing about us, and you can ask, Garland Gillian, who films us on game weeks a lot. You come to the car and film, have a good edit button, because we're not about to politically correct how we're doing things, right? The parents
And you
know,
see that in a series.
yeah, the parents know, administration know. When you come to the car, you do the open house, you walk around, you can come visit practice before your child comes on the team. You can sit in meetings, it's a very open process, right? Jackson comes and he's filming, and I'm just like, who is this guy, right? Guy trying to just make some money off of us, the story, whatever. So he has a conversation with me. The conversation kind of goes like, look, Norm, I'm trying to shine light on what's going on in the city. And I'm like, okay, for sure.
Right.
I leave practice, I brush him off. Well, he would text me. I wouldn't answer. He would text me. I wouldn't answer. So he would wait till I get to the school and be like, but never mad. He was never always, bro, I know you saw me text you, like, what's up? And I'd be like, I'm busy. And make a long story short, the year goes by, right? And so he tried to get people. You call me. No, you got to answer the phone. No, Bryce called me. You got to do this interview. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. And I didn't understand the vision. What got me was, and this goes back to, getting off your knees and doing work. Things happen, right? And I don't really want to speak on what it was that happened, but Jackson would show up like before we could get there. I'm talking about stuff with our players, like, getting hurt, getting shot, now don't have this, don't have that. He would show up, but he would show up without cameras. So whether I would get there or not, I would talk to Bryce, I would talk to Marv, I would talk to people. I'd be like, dog, Jackson and this crew, Dorado and them, they like, oh, yeah, they showed up, helped John win with this. Yeah, they showed up for Kiran, no camera. And I get to the hospital for one incident, no camera. So the first thing resonated with me was, he ain't got no recorder out, he ain't got no cane asking no questions.
It's authentic.
He ain't trying to pull people on the side. Right. He trying to help, bro. Like, I'm talking about real help, like out of his own pocket, like money, time, sacrifice. And so once that started happening, I just told my wife, I was like, man, he like us. I said, he see what's going on. I think he got entrenched into our community. Like, hold up. Like, yeah, I want to shoot this. It got to be, some great things you got to shoot got to be put on camera, right, as you see on the film. But a lot of times he had no camera. And so that just made me start answering the phone and talking to him more. And then we started doing interviews. And then it went from interviews to, like, he'll mic me up before the game. And, we had got so close to it, like, before I would speak to the team, he would come to me kind of like, and I tell him this, I was like, you just like Bryce. He would come to me like Bryce and be like, hey, I need one. And I'm looking at him like, you coaching tonight? You want us to win too, huh? He was like, no.
You are the pulse of the team.
But not only that, he would feel the team be like, hey, they look flat. Like, we walking around, they look like they overlooking somebody. Like, no, you better get him. And I walk in the room, and every coach know that you have a feeling for your guys on how they do things. Mm-hmm. And you could feel it in my back of my mind. I'm going, damn, Jackson and Bryce saying the same thing. They're starting to say the same thing. And so that would motivate me to talk to the kids. And one thing about the cameras, it never was like,
Staged.
yeah, like, he would come in my meetings, Mac would come in my meetings, and there would always be a preface to, hey, no, we might come in today. You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't going to change. Bryce not going to change because, the kids know that. The kids will come to you and go, Coach, why you talking like that in front of the camera?
Right.
Like, man, be yourself. And I'm
Right.
like, you know what? You're right. You know what I'm saying? So that's our relationship now, is that he's a good person. I've met his family. He's met my family. He's been in my house. I've been in his house. We fellowship together. And at this point, there is no color for us. We don't look at each other like color. I don't look at him like he white. He don't look at me like I'm black, even though I'm half black, half Asian. We don't even talk about that, right? And
Right.
so we just both have a grasp to want to get to know each other more. I want to know more about what he's doing, and he asks me every time we see me. He asks me a new question about what's going on. Like, the filming has stopped, and so he called me like, man, what's going on? Like, what y'all doing today? So it's just a great relationship that we have and been built. And it's not just with me. Like, he's created these relationships with the kids, with some kids that's graduated, kids that's still at J Bags. I go on and on. And him and Marv are like this, Bryce, and so Shaq, and he's just entrenched his personality on us. And he's fell right in the Algiers community of just wanting to give back. And then the crazy part about it, that's a new outlet.
Yeah.
G has the media thing, but that's another outlet that our kids have an interest in.
Right.
Like, some kids want to edit videos, some kids want to produce these kind of things, and guess who they talking to after practice? We'll be walking away. He'll have 4 kids around him, and they just talking. Ain't no camera, they talking, and I'm like you just another resource for our community, and we couldn't be more grateful to him.
That's why I
see
wanted
the
to
joy
shed
in
light
his
on
face.
it.
You can see the joy in the face.
Yeah, I love you, man.
I love
And
you too, dog.
I get a little emotional hearing everything you just said, bro. But it's all worth it for everything you just said, man. Seriously, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring some comic relief because I can't stand how you portray my boy Norm, man. He's already light skinned. He got the good hair. Now I gotta sit here next to him, knowing that his DMs just going off the chain. Even though he married, man. Talk about how the national spotlight now being on Norm is like something that.
I call him Hollywood, by the way.
He noticed. I asked him to not put me in none of the episodes, just use my voice. And he's like, no way, it's not happening. You don't have a choice at this point.
Right.
My DM's going crazy, and I'll be honest with you, and I showed him this the other night at dinner. If I had 200 DMs, I would say about 120, 130 of them came from former players. And so there's no, and let's just be honest, you're assistant in high school football, you're not making money.
Right.
It's a stipend, right? I haven't been working in the building for years. So that alone, just hearing my kids in the past just be like, Coach, man, thank you. Or Coach, you keep doing what you're doing. Or Coach, I took this lesson. Or Coach, I got kids now. Coach, I got a business. And me just answering them back, a lot of times it got me emotional. I would never tell them because they would clown me. But it's the best. And I can name so many kids I've spoken to in the last 3 weeks since this thing has aired that just kind of brought them back to their time, because those kids don't realize what they built. I think when you're not there every day and you end up leaving and going to college, you don't understand the Melvin Davises and the Dinks of the world and the Doubles. They don't understand the impact they had on us as coaches and how they taught us. And I tell kids all the time, man, first of all, we never, like Bryce said, we never backed 100%. There's nothing that separates us from the coaches at Easton and Kennedy, man. We all know X's and O's. It's just about the love and how you get your kids to run through a wall for you, same way you sacrifice and do things for them. I think those kids understand the growth they had on us, starting with Munchie and those guys and Cornelius Lucas, and how they allowed us to grow. I tell people all the time back then, and y'all can attest to this, our conditioning was, you did wrong or you gave up points, we running 40 gashes after practice. We wearing our kids down. But at the time, we didn't know. We were coming straight out of college, and, we didn't know we were tearing their joints up and putting wear and tear on their bodies. Now, if you look at our program now, all the conditioning is built within the practice, right? And so it's just little detailed stuff like that to where, we ice our kids 4 days a week. We have a trainer on staff 24 hours a day, and, They have some of the best resources money can buy for a public school.
Right.
You don't have those things, and so him shining light on this, y'all doing what y'all doing, I think is just helping not only us grow, but the community that we have.
Yeah, but you mind if I just comment real quick? It's just the thing about him, which you see right here, is you asked him a question about him and what's coming from all this, right? And he immediately goes and talks about everyone else. Right?
That's always been him.
That's how he is.
That's
as a
always
person,
been him.
right? And what I love about Norm and all of these other coaches, and as he references the coaches in this city, who I don't know as well, but they've been doing this their whole life when no cameras were around, when there weren't any cameras around, and they weren't making anything. They're still barely making anything. And when you see that in real life, when you see the way he is so dedicated and gives his life for these kids in this community, and it's service. It's not his
acts of service.
It's acts of service,
acts
right?
of service.
That's like why I called Bryce a savior, right? They all are. That's something I'm so happy is highlighted in this series, because to me, Norm, he's always quick to give the credit to everyone else, but this is a really special dude right here, and I hope, and I wouldn't be surprised if from the series, a lot of people out there are going, man, who is this guy?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I'm talking NFL, college, or a whole nother craft, right? But he's that special.
Right.
And as soon as I came on to the scene, it was like, this guy, I just gravitated towards him. And that's why he's in so much of it too.
And a couple of kids that I mentored and that I coached in middle school, that they hit me up during this series, and it was like, that's where you got to be where your feet is. That's where you got no excuses. No excuses, just results. Yeah. All these little sayings that I've taken from this program, that I've taken from Coach Norman, that I've taken from Coach Bryce, just being around their programs over a decade, it has helped me in my life. And how I mentor kids and how I fellowship with kids and how I coach kids, and, basing it off not just the sport that they're playing, man, but about love. And showing them, how to navigate through life.
Right.
Because I didn't have that. My daddy was in my life, but he wasn't in my life like he was supposed to be. I wasn't one of those kids that came up in a 2-parent home. And so I know that feeling of growing up, not having that male figure to lean on for advice, whether it's girls, drugs, whatever it may be, trying to figure out, what my next move is after high school. I didn't have that, man. I had to figure out everything out on the fly. And so, when I think everything happens for a reason. I know as cliche as that might sound, when I met Norman back in 2003 at Southeastern, that was all God's timing, bro, because I would never be the person I am today. And I really mean that, because I thought I knew what pride meant until I met them. I'm like, that's what pride is. That's what love is. Like, that's what it is, bro. And I've taken a lot of things from that program and from those guys on that coaching staff who are good friends of mine, and poured it into my life with my kids. And so, when you're making that kind of impact on people, that's when you're doing God's acts of service like we just talked about. And so, just seeing how you shine light on it, because I've been telling this story for years in the barbershop where I'm from.
Yeah, you have.
On your YouTube page.
On my YouTube, I've been telling people how special of a group of people this is for a long time, and now they're like, that's what you've been talking about. But it goes to a bigger point, like Norm said. It's not just happening at Carp.
Yeah.
It's happening at St. Helena.
Everywhere.
It's happening at A-Mead. It's happening at Kennedy. It's happening at West. It's happening at a lot of different places. But I think that you shining a light on Algiers America, that's going to inspire a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some kids.
Yep.
I was just telling somebody in the barbershop, I said, they was like, man, I didn't know they was going through that, man. I wish they wouldn't have shined so much light on, the gun violence. I said, man, I guarantee you.
That's part of it.
Right. You're not going to save them all, right?
Right.
But if you got, let's just say 20 kids that watch that film and say, you know what, bro, I got to chill out. I'm not going to pick up them guns anymore. That's an impact. That's impact. And so I think, what Algiers America is doing, man, not only in the city of New Orleans, but around the country, you can't put a price on it.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, bro.
I think the name of the show, it says Algiers, but when it says Algiers America, it just gives you Man, it's everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And like you said, we ain't saying every school is bad. We ain't saying our school. We just saying that the kids are going through something. Let's help them with it. Let's shine a light on it. And I think this is another comic relief. When people watch this show, they've been trying to figure out for 15 years since I started coaching, what is his affiliation with us? If you're not around Carl,
Right.
then they kind of go, why does he have so many things on his YouTube page? And why you go cover 3 games a year? Because we've been knowing each other and friends, now brothers, since 2003.
Yes.
And so fall of 2003, we met fussing about our high schools. They beat us in basketball, and now it's grown into something where I call G all the time. Like, if I can't get the Bryce, I call G. Like, look, I need you to talk to this kid. Ty G was a big one of those. Like, can you help navigate him through? It was so much of these people coming at him for his services, and he knows better than me. And so that's his job. Same thing with Bryce. I work a different job outside of coaching. And so he would like go to Ty G house and help. Like, he never got paid for that. Driving from Homer to the east,
Right.
Just having those conversations
And that's
and
a hike.
being grateful. But guess what? Your blessings come abundantly
For real.
in favor. So, I think everybody has a little part in it. My dad, shout out to my dad who started Louisiana Heat 22 years ago. He's been in church in Algiers. Miss Rhonda, who's talking mom, till this day, Miss Rhonda, his grandmother on my dad's football pool. And if they go through hard times, they know they can call my pops. He's just a community leader. And so, it starts with like that, like Nick Foster dad, another community leader who, we just try to extend what our people did for us and give them the knowledge. And I think Jackson's now part of that community. Like he said, he lives here.
Yep.
I hang out at his house, and, his kids come around, my kids come around. Like, that program has raised my children. They're 12 and 8. First state championship we went to, my son was just born.
Yeah.
And ever since then, we've been to 10 out of his 12 years.
That's all he knew.
That's all he knows. It's called football, and the call way and pride and how he do things. And so I'm proud of that. Like, a lot of those kids, like Brian Anderson, who did the music for the opening episode, I have a video of him having my son on his shoulders at a JV game when he was 1 year old. And I'm coaching a JV game, and Brian and them holding him, watching my son while I coach. So, it's deeper than just football. It's family and it's love, and it's a great, 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 great show. Hard to watch if you have any empathy and you love football. It's like, as soon as it goes off, you're like, man, what the next episode?
Yes.
Why Jackson did this to us?
Yes.
Just drop all the episodes.
Yes.
But that's the beauty of it.
I like that they don't all air at once.
Yeah.
Right? Netflix drops it all at once, man. You got to leave them wanting a little more.
Suspense.
Talk about this because one of the things that we love to do at our show is to show kids a different outlet, and what you're doing, the process, if you can legally, because we don't want to put you in a bind of getting a show to Hulu, Netflix, just speak on that real quick before.
I'm currently going through it.
Oh yeah, man. It was.
Hey, look.
It's a humbling experience, man. I went a little cocky. I came out of Vice being like, all right, I got a good team around me. This can be no problem. We got a great story. And we had a really, really nice trailer, but it took a long time to get a network involved. And part of that is because, like you brought up in the barbershop, is that, people are like, man, I wish it wasn't, talking about some of this negative stuff. But I think that, look, we have to talk about that stuff because that is the reality right now all around the country. And in order for things to change, we have to accept it and talk about it. And so when we went to the networks and we told them, look, this is a high school football story, but we're going to touch on these really important issues.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of places got scared of that. They want Ted Lasso or Christina Aguilera or whatever, right? And so it was really hard to find someone who wanted to take that chance with us because it touches on all these important subjects. And so, man, it was not easy. And there were times when I didn't think we were going to get a buyer. Luckily, the studio, Anscape, within ESPN, got behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the only one.
Wow.
They were the only one, man. We got rejections from HBO, Netflix, Peacock, you name it, all of them. And
What's crazy is he came to practice one day. He was like, "Hey, Stephen A. Smith watched it. He loved it." And I'm like, "Just watch Stephen A. Smith on First Take."
Right.
And he's like, "Yeah, he loved it." And I'm like, "These the kind of people watching it?" He's like, "Yeah." And
That's
I'm
why
like,
I say the world.
"This is crazy. It's crazy."
Yeah.
Some of the people that have viewed it is You know, it's like people you watch every day. You kind of look up to
Iconic.
the sports world as iconic, and they actually took time out their day to sit down and watch this, and then liked it, and then like when the New York Times wrote their article on it and the Golden Globes, I was blew away because we're on it, but we didn't put the work in behind it.
Right.
So when he would leave us, I'm talking to all the editors after the premiere, and they're like, bro, we've been in there 1, 2 in the morning, wake up, go shoot, come back, shoot, and like a lot of. I said, man, it's like coaching. Like it's like a lot of product going into it, a lot of meetings, a lot of bickering back and forth about what's the best view of what, and they put in all the hard work. We just allowed them to come in and shoot it, and see, like you said, what's been going on for years.
That's crazy, man. From the car rock that G went viral to Algiers, America. Who would have thought over the 8 years ago, G?
Something like that.
Who would have thought in the span of 8 years that a viral video that G put
And
out.
then people around the world started stealing the rock, trying to emulate it.
Oh,
You know
no
what I'm
way.
saying?
All right.
He's like that's the breaker of like he's the first one. Like it was another one when them and Landry Walker went to the state championship the same
16.
year. To me, like you talk about the Tonka and Jaluk. To me, that is because being from here, to understand, like, hey,
And then
two
they both
teams
won
from
it.
the West Bank did it, and like they up. It wasn't no man. We did it, man.
We were cheering them on as
It's
they were
like,
coming
hey,
out.
y'all gotta go do it. You know what I'm
I
saying?
watch those videos on YouTube. It gives me
Like
a blood
like
rush.
that is to see like because like I'm one of the kids, like I'm from here, in Tristan here, but I didn't want my family to grow because my wife is from nowhere near here, so she don't understand the involvement. So like the best thing for me as the leader of my family was like, all right, we can't live here because I don't want to explain to you, hey, don't go over here, don't do it. No, these are the do's, these are the don'ts. Look, you know what I'm saying? But I will always have love for them, and I think that's been the message from the show that I've gotten, and it shows that, hey, reach one, teach one, love one. Reach one,
That's
teach
another
one,
one
love
I
one.
stole from
Reach one, teach one, love one. Like it's crazy how you sit there and watch. Like I've been saying that for so long. I got it from my grandfather, who's a pillar in Kennedy Heights,
Right.
and it's crazy how you watch certain people who's from pillar families or have a pivotal male figure in their family, and you like, all right, I've been saying this, nobody else is doing it. Then you like, boom, there it is. Like, I'll be damned.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll be damned. Them too.
Right.
Yeah. And like I'm like when I won my first state championship, Norman. Now I'm talking about D-line, baby. That's what we do. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, like man, dude, like you going for number 3. You know what I'm saying? Like you got time to you know what I'm saying? Like that's one of the videos that I look back like G, because like G knew what I was going through. Because like Norman, I don't work at the school, never have. My wife is an administrator at school, but like I have a special needs kid, so I'm doing A, B, C, D, D, and I'm spending as much time with them as I'm doing one. So I'm burnt out, and like to see like G was like when we won our state championship, like he just put like you can see the joy on his face, like I got another brother that was like it was like the relief. It was like, but it's like G said, like God does things for a reason. He put us in people's lives to where like
I really believe that, bro.
like, hey, let's do this. I remember like, at his birthday party one time, we did paintballing, and all we did was like we had fun, but we talked about, man, look, how can you help this kid? Man, I got a kid you can help, because it's at the end of the day, we don't want this generation to go through what we went through.
Be better than us.
Yes.
Before we get ready to close it down, can we expect a second season of Algiers America?
Please. Marrero America.
Will you call ESPN for me? Give them a call. You make the pitch.
We gotta have a second season.
Oh man, look, I never stopped filming, to be honest. It's looking good.
Looking good?
It's looking good. With no pen to paper yet, but it's looking good. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Can there be a Tri-Paris America?
you know. I don't
talked about this.
We talked about this. Like, I don't know where this gonna start, but that's why I said the comma America part. Exactly what you just
Catchy,
said. I mean,
so catchy.
I mean, you could literally do Memphis America. You can do wherever he goes
Start
and
a
shines
franchise.
light. I think you'll get the perspective of, because that's the best part of what G said earlier in the show is the kids narrate it.
Yes.
There's so many podcasts, there's so many things now where the athlete is telling their story, right? And no offense to the media, but I think that's what the whole thing of like Draymond and LeBron, like the new media. Our kids, I mean, a lot of kids can't even speak in front of the camera. I mean, how many interviews do you do where you got to stop the camera and go, hey, hold up.
Yes.
You just said too many times. But you got it raw and authentic of AJ telling his story. AJ telling you what he going through in therapy after tearing his thumb up, knowing, like at Carr, bro, it's so much pressure to win, right? It's so much pressure from the times that came before you, especially you won 4 in a row, so you don't want to be the class that let it down. We lose to Carrico. Like, I told him, the Carrico game, the premiere of the show was my first time going back and watch the Carrico game. I do not watch state championship games we lost. I don't watch Franklinton. I don't watch the Neville's. I don't watch none of those games we lost. Now, the ones we win, I watched all of them 50,000 times.
Right.
But the state championship games we lose, or if we lose in the playoffs, I'm not watching that. The only way I'm watching it is if we got to play those guys the next year and I don't have no film on them. And I just got to see, you know what I'm saying? So, but be prepared. But, you know, that things are tough to watch. And it ain't for me. I tell the kids all the time, you guys are going to leave and we're going to coach the next class and the next class and the next class. But to watch the kids, like, you know, Fat crying through his helmet, Ty G on my shoulder, you know, that's the hardest part is to watch because they work so hard. You know, every team that you watch, they work so hard. They're with us so many days and so long. We keep them at the facility so long. You know, even on off days, sometimes they go, Coach, we supposed the school gave us off. And you're like, yeah, 10 a.m., be back.
Keeping them out of trouble.
Yeah, a lot of times he run out of battery. Hold up, Norm, I got to switch out. He put the camera, I got to switch batteries, or I got to charge this up because, you know, that's so long, you know, you keep them out of the streets as much as you can.
Yeah, but the
right?
work ethic of these kids, man. I mean,
It's
after the
incredible.
Karen Crow loss, I was filming Ty G and Tori 2 days after training, getting ready for the next year, for their senior season.
Yep.
That's why it hurts to watch the losses, too.
I'm definitely rooting for you guys, man, to get a second season. I'm just so locked into Algiers America, man, and so proud of, you know, to see my brothers, you know, Norman and Bryce and Brennan and all them boys getting that light shedded on what they're doing, and, you know, just getting to know you over the last couple of years, Jackson, man. I'm so happy for you, and because I understand what goes into this, right? Because I am in the media in a sense. I know we're in two different lanes, but I understand the process of it all, and so, you know, I know it wasn't easy what you had to go through, man, to get this all completed and get it on Hulu and getting the results that you wanted, man. I know that wasn't easy at all, bro. But before we go, got to get y'all favorites, man. We got to get y'all favorites. Jackson's and Norman's favorites. Favorite football player of all time.
Of, like,
Favorite,
pros?
It
Or,
don't matter. It don't matter.
Anywhere.
oh, my favorite football player all time? I'm not going to say a kid at call because I'm going to get beat by some other kids. So I'm not going to put myself in that position. But my favorite football player probably all time got to be Ray Lewis. But I grew up in that era, though.
Right.
And I'm a defensive guy. You know, he made, I mean, how good you got to be to make the number 52 look good?
Right.
You know,
Right.
He was just an animal and a dog. That whole Ravens squad, yeah, that's probably my favorite player. But I'm going to be honest with you. My favorite new media member, though, if we could ever get him on the show, Marcus Spears by far.
I love Marcus Spears.
I watched Marcus Spears growing up. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year for football and basketball in our state. I believe he went to Southern Lab. Dog. But on the media side of it, a dog too.
Yes.
You know, and I think he represents us well. So if we could ever get him on the show, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Jerry Rice.
There you go, frat brother.
You can't go wrong with Jerry Rice. You can't go wrong with Jerry Rice.
Favorite movie of all time.
You go first. That's your lane.
Damn it. I know, I got so many. The Revenant.
Okay.
I've seen The
Never
Revenant.
seen it.
Okay. It's
To put it in my
yeah,
notes. I
right,
gotta
right,
watch
right,
that.
The Big Lebowski.
I feel like it's overrated. I just feel so over.
And then this one is maybe a little out there, but I love Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
It's two of them for me. First, by far my favorite movie was Shawshank Redemption. Incredible. And then Blue Chips. I done watched Blue Chips a million times. And my third one that I always watch my wife go crazy because I put it on repeat is Harlem Nights.
Yeah, buddy, that's it right there.
Shawshank Redemption,
It's
Blue
crazy.
Chips.
They came out with that in '94.
Right.
Showing was been going on.
What's been going on, right?
Like
It gave you the
Blue
back.
Chips gave you the blueprint way back then.
Yep. And it gave you an in-depth look, like from Tony to Shaq. Like, it gave you white and black. It gave you everything.
Buddy wanted a track.
It was real.
Yeah,
He
it
wanted
kept
a
going
track.
on for the next 20 years before they decided to regulate it.
Right.
NIL before NIL.
Right. Favorite comedian all time?
Eddie Murphy.
Dave Chappelle.
Oh, I changed it back. Dave Chappelle then Eddie Murphy. Dave Chappelle then Eddie Murphy. I watched all Dave Chappelle stuff for the Storm. I'm in Houston. I had the DVDs. Dave Chappelle.
I can't even
He's
just call him a
still doing
comedian now. I mean, he's more to that.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
If he pull that cigarette out, he gonna make you laugh.
For real. Favorite music artist of all time?
Lil Wayne. You know that.
Typical.
He knew that was coming. I can't say what I wanted to say. He know the backstory.
Well, I grew up in Connecticut, New York. As Biggie Smalls was mine. There you go, baby.
Biggie?
There you go. Yeah.
I finally got one. I finally got another Biggie supporter.
We did about 30 episodes. He like,
Yes.
Why said Biggie?
Yeah, everybody they come on, man. Hove, Wayne. I'm like, all right, like I got it. Like when you say Wayne, I can't say them like I'm from here. I'm like, yeah, because he number 2 for me. But like when they play Hove, like, but Biggie made Hove. Like give it to him.
I do have a request for y'all too, though. Eventually, can we get Skylar and Big George on the podcast? My God, them two right there.
Higgins Legends.
Like, people don't realize how they will go.
We tried for
undefeated
long
a lot.
Ski. We tried a lot for Ski, but Ski got some stuff going on.
Right.
You know, but hey, the biggest compliment I ever got was from Bryce. He's like, y'all wrong for not winning state.
Y'all
like,
were loaded.
I was like, thank you.
That's the biggest O-line ever win again.
Somebody actually figured it out. If we didn't run the wing T.
Right. Man, this podcast might be number 1 on my list. What you think, Hen? That we did all year.
Yeah,
this might be number 1.
Look,
just the substance of it all, like like how authentic it was.
It is. It's fresh. It like to me, it's tied. Like I love the Pookie. You know,
Pokey, man, Pokey.
You know, I call her Pookie. She was my high school crush. Yeah. You know, so I always call her Pookie.
Oh yeah, Pokey. She's a legend.
Yeah.
I watched that one like 3 times.
You know what I'm saying? It's because like it gives me that same like it's coming from the heart.
Yeah.
It's coming from the heart. You know, I'm not drawing away none of the bad stuff. Like, it made me who I am. Mm-hmm. You know, the same thing. Like it's just it's so. I love it. This one so much simply because it shows so much of what we're going through right now. Mm-hmm. Gun violence is big. Nobody wants to talk about it, but we're going to keep selling them. You know, football is big. You know what I'm saying? But everybody wants to see the state championships, the homecoming, the blowouts and stuff. But nobody wants to see the work that gets put into it.
There you go.
Nobody wants to see this kid's not going home to a 2-parent, the American dream. You know, this kid is staying with grandma. Hey, coach got to really bring you boom, boom, boom. The only time you really eating is at school and what coach give you after. Like, nobody wants to talk about that because we want to put blinders on. Like, hey, if I don't see it, it's don't affect me.
But it don't stop. The day after the premiere, kid called me. I'm not gonna say his name. Called me, Coach. I'm stuck at McDonald's. All right, go get you. I pick you up. Then I get another text, Coach. I didn't eat today. All right, send me your cash out. Like, it don't stop. And what people need to realize about it is, like, don't think that as coaches we went on there to gain financial. There's no financial gain of this.
Right.
This is purely for the kids, and the light that it shined on those 5 kids and our whole team. Like, if you watch the intro, there's a lot of kids from the past, like Coco and LC and Standish.
I see Greedy on there a couple of times.
Was able to get put on there. Like, this is for the kids. They built the program. No coach builds no program. Bryce has done a great job, a phenomenal job, but from Munchie Legault to present day, those kids built this program into what it is. And so shout out to every kid that's touched that program in the last, ever.
Speaking of, I would love to get Gerald. I would love to get Speedy.
That's the man you need to talk to right there.
We will make
Gerald just finished playing for Orlando.
XFL.
They just finished their last game. Yeah, I think he finished with like 7 or 8 sacks this year. But
we'll definitely make it happen, man. Hopefully, man, we can get y'all back on the FanView podcast in the near future when season 2 premieres.
Yeah, when y'all drop that.
Jackson?
Or before then, man, whenever.
There
I
you
love
go.
talking to y'all.
Like,
Thanks for
or
having
drop
me
the
on.
nugget, like, give the national release, like, season 2 coming, such and such, heard it here first on the FanView podcast. We love that, Jack.
Right.
Let's just put it. I want to put it out in the universe now. It's just happening.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Power of the tongue.
Me and him have done a lot of interviews in the past 3 weeks, but by far this is it's like having a conversation.
Yeah.
It wasn't like an interview,
Yeah.
You felt comfortable. I didn't catch myself, looking at the camera. It's just conversation because I feel like we're all kind of doing the same work.
Well, you should be used to looking at the camera, man.
I avoid the camera. He'll tell you. I'm not.
Did you see the picture of him with braids?
Oh yes, I have.
All right,
That's because looks like his brother. Looks like his brother.
G started that.
Man, everybody that's watching the FanView podcast, make sure y'all like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, man. We gonna keep on coming with this content, man, on and on and on, man. Appreciate Coach Norman and Mr. Jackson Fager, man, for coming on the FanView podcast. Make sure y'all subscribe to the G Sports page. Make sure y'all hit the subscribe button, man. This is G Sports. I'm signing out.
Coach Hurricane, pleasure doing business with y'all, fellas.
Thank you, appreciate you.
Thank y'all.
Tell St. Helena to put us on the schedule.
Step Construction is here for you with a brand new offer. We now provide affordable storage sheds. Stop wasting your money on overpriced storage units and portable containers. Step Construction can provide you with a custom shed that will fit your budget and storage needs. So contact Step Construction today at 504-340-5809 for your own personal quote. Let us help you take the next step at Step Construction.
Look, y'all can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BFredJones. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. On Instagram, _G Sports with a Z on the end. And on Twitter, G_Sports with a Z on the end.
You can follow me on Instagram at big_homie_hen and on Twitter at HeyYoU15.